where we are, where we've seen this, where we go, what we reach.
Right.
It's an opportunity for us to come together. Television. It's just crazy in the space that we're in, and people are gathering together. Some of these keynote speakers that will take the time and let's just talk. Where talk becomes actions, and actions become transformative change. Mama used to say, baby, change isn't change until you change. I used to say, what? She had another saying that she said, let me tell you, in a few days you're going to need more. I'm like, I don't even know who Nemo is. But Mama used to say, you're going to need Nemo. And guess what? I met Nemo when I was trying to get in the house and I needed more keys to get inside. I met Nemo when I needed some food in the fridge. I met Nemo when I needed to wash clothes. Because Mama wasn't able to do it. She wasn't doing it no more for me because I thought I was wrong. And the one thing she told me that I had to hold on to was love. Okay, I know, we're getting ready for the conversations to start, but let me deposit this. Ready? Okay. There is a lady who is about to invite 3 men in for dinner. And these 3 men are standing at the steps ready to come in. And they say, wait, he only can invite one of us. And they begin to tell their name. The first one was named Success. The second one was named Money. The third one was named Love. So, you see, you got to pick one of us. And she said, well, let me go think about it. She went back in the house. She was studying making the videos for dinner. And as she was setting the table, she went back outside on the porch and she said, I only can have 3. She said, no, you only can have 1. She said, I choose love. And when she chose love, she looked up. All 3 men was coming in the door. And she said, wait, I only said I can have 1. She said, love brings success. Love brings money. Listen, Stevie Wonder said it better than anybody. We are
Bobby, look up.
and love makes the world go right. 95.9 WOBU, Jada Gospel here holding it down. You better believe it. It's a Friday, and we are just sharing. Stick and stay, don't you go where it's going to get better, gooder, and
I feel like I'm doing something real quick.
I just see the keynote walk in, and he is. Sir, can I get you just to say hello to everybody? Come over here to be on the radio. Oh, just 2 shots.
It's an apple.
This is a straight up icon in the building with us. We don't have an opportunity to have a present like this on the radio. Everybody's a big problem, but you
That's right.
Your book bring
the nickname that we give to Brother Carlton, like Jefferson, but he also represents an old school
Hello, it's me again. If anybody needs a hard copy of the survey, come see me, and I'll give you a hard copy of that survey. Again, the survey is to get information about experiences with policing in Cleveland, and we're writing a report for the community organizers and for the city about your experiences. So again, please consider taking the survey either online, there's a QR code on your table, or a hard copy survey.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Welcome to Cleveland. This brother is not wrong. That brother is all the way wrong. Man, WOBU 95.9. We are moments away from starting this conversation we are about to have. It is going to be 100%. Don't forget, tomorrow we are at Humphrey Park all day long. Every type of food you can eat. Come out, ride the dune buggy, have a chance to experience the all the safety vehicles. Just enjoy great music, take your style of we'll have everything that goes on that you didn't get a chance to hear live or with. We will have a chance to.
Can you need another camera?
Stevie Wonder, do what you do, man. I love it. So I'm speaking for
I feel like I'm in the way.
We can do it. We can make it possible. It's time that we should take something.
I'm bringing Steve
We are doing how we are doing it and where we are going. This is big. This is big. At least 95. Look at my temperature here. 85. So in the meantime, yesterday there are people filling the seats. Speakers are here. Conversations are starting. And it's education. Great opportunity. You got cameras, audio, everything that's happening. It's called Conversations. And one of the key components, it is, are you ready for this, everybody? Where talk becomes action, and action becomes transformative change. It's something that we need to get ready. 9 a.m. Black Lives Matter Citizens for Safer Cleveland. 9 a.m. And of course, the Cleveland Police Commission will be speaking 9:15, the impact of police violence, mental health, breakout sessions, 12 noon, the police, the legal, the message, lunches at 1, cleansings, it's going down. Be on the mission. WOBU 95.
We're gonna do. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Easy, man. Okay, okay. So all y'all working together?
Yeah, I'm
Okay, that's
I'm
good.
serious trying to learn as much as I can.
All right.
What's your name, sir?
Johnny, man. No, you call me Eric. That's cool.
I'm smart. People call me Smoke.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So you should, y'all get together to do it? Oh, all right. Okay. All right. So y'all can work together? Like, go to four? Oh. Oh, okay. Good. Good. Marquette. I'm gonna hop over here and say, okay. Yeah, because he was going to start sending some stuff, some people for the documentary. Oh, well, I would get around to that because when I found out he was a teacher, I wasn't trying to be like, okay, yeah, no, we did talk to him about, having some guys coming up. I'm doing NFL Network, Jim Brown at the station at Hall of Fame. So I knew the guy. That football. So we gonna talk.
So if you got an idea?
Yeah.
morning, good morning.
Good morning. All right.
Good morning, and welcome to the Cleveland Conversation Series on the impact of police violence on the mental health of the Black community. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is LaTonya Goldsby. I'm the president and co-founder of Black Lives Matter Cleveland and a board member of Citizens for a Safer Cleveland. I am also a directly impacted family member. In November 2012, Cleveland was thrust into the spotlight after 137 bullets were fired by Cleveland police officers into the vehicle, killing Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams. We demanded for accountability. In 2015, the Department of Justice investigated the Cleveland Police Department and found that they had a pattern of practice of using excessive force and were violating people's civil rights. The City of Cleveland and the Department of Justice entered into what is known as a consent decree. And again, we demanded for accountability. In November of 2014, Tanisha Anderson was murdered after her family called for help because she was experiencing a mental health crisis. And 2 weeks after Tanisha was murdered, November 23rd, my 12-year-old cousin Tamir Rice was murdered by Cleveland police while playing in a playground. And again, we demanded for accountability. We demanded accountability for Thomas Yatsko, Brandon Jones, Tania Chapman, Desmond Franklin, Vincent Belmonte, and Arthur Keith. Our cries for justice and accountability were ignored, and so we began to question, how can we change the culture of policing in Cleveland? In November of 2021, Black Lives Matter Cleveland, Citizens for a Safer Cleveland, which were then directly impacted family members, got together and we started to strategize on how we can make our Community Police Commission a permanent body for accountability. Out of those conversations and meetings, we began to organize and work with community partners and different grassroots organizations in the city of Cleveland, and we created what is known now as Citizens for a Safer Cleveland. We drafted language to amend our our city charter, to make sure that our Community Police Commission will be a permanent body of oversight. And in November of 2021, Cleveland residents voted with 59.6% of the vote and passed Issue 24. Our Community Police Commission became a permanent oversight body here in the city of Cleveland. Now I can tell you that was not an easy journey. Through the trauma of trying to navigate the system after being directly impacted, it was traumatic. So this conversation is a serious conversation. I'm glad we're all in this room and we showed up, because it's hard to show up when we talk about trauma. You know, these conversations can be triggering. And so we want to provide space for folks to be able to share collectively as a community, and so that we can begin to strategize on how we can change the culture of policing here in Cleveland and improve our police department. And so I have standing with me the authors of Issue 24. We're missing Tamir's mom, Samaria Rice. She could not be here with us today, but she says thank you for continuously showing up. At this time, I'm going to let Alicia Kirkman and Brenda Bickerstaff give you a little brief intro as to how they got into this work. Thank you.
My name is Brenda Bickerstaff. My brother Craig Bickerstaff was killed 21 years ago.
My name is Alicia Kirkman. My son Angelo Miller was murdered 16 years ago at the age of 17.
Anybody know me know I speak my mind. And I mean when I speak it. Sometimes we feel like this is a show and we're in the act. But there's no act when it comes to someone getting murdered by the police or somebody being wrongfully convicted, being in prison for a crime they didn't commit. We have to come together to make these changes. Alicia and I got together and I said, okay, the consent decree is here. This is the first one we had. But the Department of Justice investigated Cleveland 4 times. So I said, you know what? When they leave Alicia, Latanya, and Samaria, the police is gonna go back to their same old behaviors. They're gonna say, that was just a recommendation. That's what they told me when Greg got killed, when they left. Oh, that was just a recommendation, that's not a law. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Oh, they can't tell us what to do. Okay, I get you. But lo and behold, when we got a federal judge, Judge Solomon Oliver, and it's a court order now, I said, Alicia, Samaria, Latanya, it's on. We getting ready to write some legislation and put it on the ballot. And that's exactly what we did. We have one of the toughest Cleveland police commissions in the country. Don't get it twisted. Sometimes we don't get along. Sometimes you can't go along to get along. And we're going to have strife. But guess what? The commission is here to stay. So I'm going to say this to the Cleveland police, get ready. And that's all I got to say.
Good morning, everyone. And I welcome each and every one for showing up to this conversation and your participation on this morning. My name is Alicia Kirkman. I am the founder and the CEO of the Angelo Miller Foundation, mother of Angelo Miller, who was murdered by a Black Cleveland police officer, John Lundy, March 23rd, 2007, at the age of 17 years old. 16 years ago, wow, but it seems like yesterday. With no accountability, no accountability. The cop was able to retire, and I still don't have my son. Along with other families who have lost their loved ones by the hands of the Cleveland police, I, Alicia Kirkman, is a core leader and writer of the Citizens for a Safer Cleveland Issue 24 campaign, which is now Charter 115. The campaign successfully passed a City of Cleveland Charter Amendment ballot measure in the November 2021 election that we created independent investigation into police misconduct and implement powerful community oversight over policing with the goal of ensuring no other family ever have to grieve a loved one needless murder at the hands of the Cleveland police like me. I have endured a lot of pain. And this experience of the loss of my son has led to some mental and physical health issues. PSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, sleepless nights, because I want my son back so bad. Depression, anxiety, and it also creates a lot of other physical, medical conditions with my body. But I thank God on today. I thank God for the God I serve. Because without the God I serve, I don't know where I'd be today. I thank God for just that strength to keep me fighting. Not just fighting for my son, because my son ain't coming back, but I'm fighting for our future. And I just want to thank everyone for coming out today and continue to stand with us, put your fists up, and help us fight Say his name, Angelo Miller.
Angelo Miller.
Well, hello everyone, my name is Kareem Hinton. I am one of the founding members of Black Lives Matter Cleveland, and I am also a member of Citizens for a Safer Cleveland, who brought to you issue 24 now, Charter Amendment 115. I want to say with the ladies that you see walking away from the podium, that's why I'm here. I feel compelled, privileged, and honored to be able to facilitate whatever they want, whenever they want it. I feel honored to be able to assist them, and you know, in whatever way I could. I just wish I could have been here a lot sooner for both Brenda Bickerstaff and Alicia Kirkland. I love them so much. So I just want to say this real quick, that you know what I brought to this, or what I always try to bring is, I knew that just stomping on the streets, disrupting, was not going to get us what we wanted. And I knew we had to engage both politically, and I knew that we had to engage in a legal aspect as well. So that's my segue into my introduction. There's a gentleman who I admired so much as an attorney, and you know, just follow him on social media, just like, you know, I was a fanboy, just to be honest, and but just really admired their work, and that's where who I'm talking about is Lee Merritt, Esquire. Lee Merritt, Esquire, commonly known as the People's Lawyer, is emerging as an influential new voice in the fight for social justice. I'm not going to say emerging, I'll say he's there. A civil rights activist and attorney, Merritt runs a high-profile practice focusing on victims of police brutality, hate crimes, and corporate discrimination. As an activist, he has championed police reform, community empowerment. His office has led the way in reform in Texas, a state notorious for its failures to prosecute police officers, advocating for the first murder indictments of officers in the state in over 40 years. Following the devastation caused by Hurricane Harvey in the summer of 2017, Merritt helped to launch the American Black Cross, a disaster relief organization geared to serve the most vulnerable sectors of our society. That's what I call just leadership and advocacy, truly, truly in action. I'm proud to have met him finally, and it's my pleasure to introduce him. Please come up to the podium, Brother Lee Merritt.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Lee Merritt. I'm a civil rights attorney based out of Pennsylvania and New Jersey, although I'm fluent here from Texas. I'm going to start off with a bit of an icebreaker. I was hanging out with one of your members of your commission and a young attorney here who's also a rapper. And you know what? I don't always get to rap as a civil rights attorney, but as a kid, it was something I was really into. So I'm going to offer you all something that reflects what my day-to-day looks like. I need your help though. Can you all say ring ring? Ring ring. This is my phone ringing. Every day my phone rings with another phone call. Ring ring? Ring ring. And so the poem, the verse, the rap that I'm gonna share with you, is just about what my day looks like on a day-to-day basis. Selfishly, it's about my own mental health. But these are real phone calls that I received. They didn't rhyme. All right. Ring ring? Ring ring. They murdered my grandma. Hello? They murdered my grandma, and I've been coping miserably. I take 2 shots of Hennessy because she took 2 shots meant for me. And Mr. Merritt, I hope we can speak eventually because you said it's on us, but this one is on me specifically. And I don't know if I should let this darkness get to me because I don't want to die, but lately I've been thinking differently. Like, is it life if they feed us death intentionally? And I've been marked at risk since day 1 of elementary. What lies ahead is either death or penitentiary, and justice seems to be a game of chance and serendipity. Ring, ring? Ring, ring. Hello? They murdered my auntie, and I've been coping awkwardly. We were playing video games, they were playing Monopoly. Late Friday night, I heard them creeping on our property. They told me to lay low. This could be a robbery. I closed my eyes, I heard a shot in a cacophony, and I don't know the policy, but shoot first apologies is probably ineffective. You got the law degree, but I saw it all, so I cried my tears inaudibly. Ring, ring? Ring, ring. Hello? They murdered my son, and I've been coping hopelessly. He went for a run, they grabbed the guns and did it openly. And then they told me clutch my rosaries and meet him by the river because the chariot's swinging lower than it's supposed to be. But my son, he fought him nobly, just like his mother taught him, because the resistance is the potpourri of poetry. Dead flowers that smell like hope to me. The spirit of Ahmad is the spirit that's provoking me. And the clouds are passing over me, yet the sky provides an opening. And my eyes can see approaching me. I'm sorry, leave a message and hopefully you'll get a hold of me. Ring, ring. Ring. I said, on top of being an attorney, I'm a father. I'm a father of 5. I have 3 boys, 2 girls. My second oldest son's name is Amari. He's a dreamer. And about 2 weeks ago, he came to me and he had a dream. I love hearing about his dreams. And so he shared his dream with me, and I realized that he actually had that dream for you all. Amari dreamed that me and his 4 siblings were at a pool. And he called a bunch of random people. He said there was a bunch of random people there. Now my son, he hasn't quite figured out racism yet. What he meant was white people. I knew he meant that when he said it, because that's what he means when he says random. Because that's what I call white people when I say, well, there's a bunch of random people. I don't know. Right. And so my son said, there's a bunch of random people there. Me and my 4 siblings, you were there. We're all swimming in the pool. And suddenly I noticed there's an alligator in the pool. So he calls out to his little brother, Sidney, you got to get out of the pool. And everyone needs to get out of the pool, not only Sidney, but all the other random people as well. And so Sidney is attempting to get out of the pool in his dream, and suddenly a man, one of these random men, jumps in the pool and blocks Sidney's path. And now, the way Amari described it, he said, the man seemed to be going a little crazy. Now, as a professional, I was thinking, oh, the man was in the midst of some sort of mental health crisis. But he's blocking my baby son from getting out of the pool, and there's a 50-pound alligator moving in his direction. And so, the man was not alone. He actually had a sister there as well. His sister gets in the pool and calms the man down, gives him a hug, and begins to guide him out of the pool. And that works. The man, my son, are exiting the pool, but suddenly he flips. He goes back towards my son. This is an Amari's dream. And so I shoot him. I shoot the man in his chest. Body's in a mass until his body drops to the ground. That's what I'm trained. And I was devastated by the dream. I said, what was this supposed to mean? So I went to the person I go for advice. I went to my 11-year-old daughter, Layla. And I said, Layla, let me tell you about Amari's dream. I walk her through the dream the way I just walked you through it, and at the end, of course, I shoot the man. She looks at me disappointed. She says, Dad, if I were there, I would have told you to shoot the alligator. Never crossed my mind. Shoot the alligator. I'm going to give you, my mission today is to offer to you all, activists, community organizers, and even law enforcement and executives, we need to begin to shoot the alligator. There is a 50-pound alligator in the water, in these waters here in Cleveland. The 50-pound alligator is military-style policing. It's a 50-year-old monster in this country. Military-style policing. Policing the company started about 50 years ago with the launch of the war on drugs. The policies over the last 50 years have produced the deadliest police culture in the modern world. The most incarcerated nation in world history. 50 years ago, we had a population of 100,000 prisoners in all 50 states. Less than 50 years later, we've jumped to 7.6 million people under some form of state supervision, prison, or parole. That's more people than ever held in slavery at any given time. 2.2 million people in cages. 50 years of policy that has produced the deadliest police culture in the world, 1,100 bodies via gun a year. But we don't begin to even talk about the people that we choke to death, the people that we wrongfully arrest, brutalize, maim, and injure. 1,100 people a year, 1 out of 3 black men. There is a 50-pound alligator here in Cleveland. And for too long, we focus on shooting the wrong person. I'm not offering that we should shoot the cops. It's time to shoot the alligator. Yes, that means actively dismantling the warlike policies of the last 50 years. They didn't spring up out of nowhere. They started because of specific policy decisions that we all granted our leaders the right to make. That means in order to shoot the alligator, to extend the metaphor, that means actually passing new laws, tougher laws that allow for us to hold police officers accountable. It means freeing up the courts to hold brutal police officers accountable by ending qualified immunity. And for those of you all who are unfamiliar with the ideal of qualified immunity, the plain language of the court says that only the most incompetent officer should ever be held accountable. I wish I was making that language up, but that is the direct language from the court. Only the plainly incompetent should be allowed to even be put through litigation process. The vast majority of police-involved shootings or instances of police brutality are kept out of the court due to qualified immunity. I think we spend a lot of time putting our sight, or taking our sight off the alligator because there's so many human impediments to justice that we tend to ignore the alligator. That's what happened to me in the dream. The random guy was blocking my son's exit. My concern was with him. But the random man in mental health crisis wasn't the one creating the danger. The alligator was. I didn't like the stranger. I didn't know the stranger. But the alligator was the problem. We have impediments that may seem like a problem. Racism is an impediment that may seem like a problem. The violent police culture, depression, paranoia, mental illness affecting those both in and outside of uniform. We must heed the advice of my 11-year-old daughter and shoot the alligator. I mentioned these policies started suddenly in America. That means in order to shoot the alligator, we can begin by releasing hundreds of thousands of prisoners. In converting those detention facilities that they're being held into to treatment facilities. We can flood our prisons with mental health resources because there's something like, if I get the number correct, 4/5 of the prison population has either diagnosed or undiagnosed mental health condition. Our prisons need to be flooded with mental health resources for individual citizens re-entering our communities. We can use our resources to build community centers, substance abuse centers, lifestyle and therapy inventories, using the same treatment models that we've seen over the last decade during the so-called opioid crisis. You notice there was no war on opioids, but we discovered a way of treating impacted communities using things like compassion, mental health resources, medical resources. And so we have a model for addressing the ongoing drug and substance abuse issues in our community that does not criminalize entire populations. We can shoot the alligator by rapidly dismantling the American prison industrial complex. That means dismantling the school-to-prison pipeline. The archaic war on drugs is how, in ending, of course, the war on drugs is how you shoot the alligator. Now, I often say it's on us. I speak to community members like you. I'm an organizer, I'm a community member, a dad, a coach, an attorney. So this is the part that's on us. But to the law enforcement members who are in the community or who may later watch this video, it's also on you. We need you to shoot the alligator as well. We must require officers to take an oath to preserve human life and kill the actual threats. Well, when I think about the dream, I was thinking, you know what, I'm glad I was there. In my son's imagination, I'm glad that he knew that he had a dad that was going to protect him. And community, we're glad that you're here. The city of Cleveland needs to know that it has a community that's going to stand up and protect it. that it has advocates that in the back of their subconscious, am I too far away? Thank you, sir. When the rubber hits the road, there are a group of people who will stand up for them, but we need them to be a little more controlled. We need officers to understand that black skin is not a threat. Non-compliance is not a threat. Mental health crisis is not a crime. My cameraman was supposed to be working. He's chilling right now. His name is Kevin, and he's a minister and a police officer chaplain in McKinney, Texas, where we actually live. He has always worked with cops, and I used to criticize gentlemen like him for, why are you working with them dirty crocodiles? But like most of us, Kevin believes in law and order. He believes in public safety. And like me, he's raising kids in North Texas. His kids are just a bit older than mine. And in 2021, one of his sons, Darius, was a rising double major at UNT, the University of North Texas. Criminal justice major, member of the National Organization for Black Law Enforcement, Noble. He was probably going to end up being a police chief somewhere in North Texas. But in January of 2021, police officers entered his apartment during a mental health crisis, and they killed him. I'm going to ask Brother Tarver to come up for a moment. Could you all give Kevin a round of applause? It helps that he's on crutches, so he looks like a real victim. Kev, if you don't mind having a seat on that stage, then you can cue up that video for me. If you all will allow, I'm going to speak to Mr. Tarver, Darius' dad. I'm sorry, I can't take questions at the moment, but in just a few. I'm going to speak to Mr. Tarver as if he's on direct examination in a trial. We're going to introduce the video of his son being murdered during a mental health crisis. Normally, I wouldn't do this, but Kevin himself is both an expert in police use of force. He uses this video as evidence or as demonstrations, and so this is something that he has become accustomed to. And we're going to walk you all through it. We'll follow this up with I'm looking forward to the panel conversation where we can take questions and get into it. Right now, is the video up? If you all don't mind, typically in a courtroom, where's Chris at? That'd be nice. Yeah, that'd be perfect. Is Chris here? He's out. Yeah, there he is. All right. No, have a seat. Have a seat. You're fine. You know that during a direct examination, could you put pause on the video? We like to go from the back of the courtroom so that the attention can be on our speaker and on our evidence. So I'm going to back up here. And if you can hold that video for me, please. Mr. Tarver, good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the audience?
My name is Kevin Tarver, father of Darius Tarver, founder of DJT Justice Network in McKinney, Texas.
Now, in a moment, I'm going to introduce you to this crowd. Evidence involving body-worn cameras from 4 police officers. Are you familiar with these officers?
Yes.
How are you familiar with them? Sorry.
We responded to a call in my son's crisis that took his life.
Now, can you briefly tell us what was happening prior to the police officers arriving?
Prior to the arrival of the officers, my son found himself in a mental crisis. He was actually crying out to God and knocking out hallway lights because he was in the previous week he had a car accident, which he found himself in ICU trauma, but the hospital released him within 24 hours and sent him home. So that following week when he was at home, he ended up having traumatic brain bleed and found himself just suffering, and that was his crime, basically knocking out hallway lights, and his roommates feared, for him, so they called to get help, not because he was a danger, but because they never seen him active.
I'm going to ask you a moment to tell this audience a little something about your son before we move on with the evidence.
Well, Darius was a unique kid that you really never had to stay on. He was always the one in the midst of the crowd that everyone loved and respected. He could have went to school on a basketball scholarship, but he decided he didn't want to play basketball anymore. He said, "Dad, I just want to go to school." And, you know, he went to several different schools from TJC, Junior College to Stephen F. Austin, then to University of North Texas, where he was studying criminal justice. And he worked 2 jobs, you know, he loves serving people. He worked in the community, he volunteered in the community. He was an active member of NOBLE, National Organization of Black Law Enforcement. He was looking to go into federal law to basically do some things and be able to change the very thing that killed him. And he was on the dean's list, never been in trouble, no drugs, no alcohol. He was a kid that everyone on campus came to and shared their problems because he was non-biased, and his peers looked up to him. So this was a kid that had a very bright future. He ended up even in death with 2 degrees, but never got the opportunity to use them.
Mr. Tarver, on the screen, there are 4 different split screens. What are those 4 cameras represent?
Those are the 4 body cams of the officers that responded to my son's mental crisis.
At this point in the video, there is a man descending the stairs in the top left-hand screen and the bottom lower right-hand screen. Who is that man?
That's my son.
Did your son represent a deadly threat to officers or others, to your knowledge?
There was no deadly threat at all. He was actually complying even though he was in a mental crisis because they was telling him to come downstairs.
Cop's job is to get the bad guys. Your son one of the bad guys?
Repeat that question.
The cop's job is to capture the bad guys. Is your son currently one of the bad guys?
No.
Is your son addicted to drugs, or was he at the time?
No.
Was he a criminal?
No.
Have you been trained in police officers' use of force protocol?
Yes.
What was your training?
Well, one of the things is I also sit on the chief advisory board for the city. I'm also trained, and I have been certified on TCO to be able to.
What's TCO?
The Texas Commission on over law enforcement.
All right, we're gonna walk through it now, as to save time. But if you can go ahead and hit play. What's your son doing as he hits play?
He's walking down, just crying out to God, pointing his hand to the sky, saying, "My heavenly Father is my only Lord and God, my Savior."
Hold the video. Hold the video. Right now, your son is standing there. What's in his right hand or left hand?
His right hand.
What's in his right hand?
Nothing. Well, right hand, nothing.
All right, so he has a frying pan in his left hand. What is he facing?
He's looking to the sky. All the officers are screaming at him.
I apologize. I wouldn't be allowed to do this in court, but he's facing 4 officers, correct?
Yes.
There's 4 officers who surrounded him, and he's carrying a frying pan. What's the policy at this point?
At this time, when you analyze the situation, and you go from time, distance, and cover.
Time, distance, cover. What does that mean? Time, distance, cover.
That means
create more time.
You create the time.
Create more distance. I'm sorry.
You create the time in order to be able to analyze to see if there's really a threat, if there's something that you can do. But in his situation, this is where you take that time to de-escalate.
Did these officers, I'm sorry to interrupt you, did these officers slow this down and create the time the protocol requires them?
No, they actually created a danger for my son and himself.
Did they back up and create additional distance?
No, they were maybe 3-4 feet at maximum.
Did they take cover so that they could avoid injury from your son?
No, they were still standing there screaming and hollering, pointing their weapons.
You can go ahead and hit play. The makers of the video really want you all to see the pan.
Oh, damn!
Hold the video. Hold the video. At this point, Darius has been tased. Do you know what happens when someone's tased?
over 50,000 volts run through your body, and they go into convulsions, they don't fall out.
Your son is being struck with 50,000 volts of electricity, but he's also been shot by one of the officers. Correct?
Correct.
He goes to the ground. Does he have the frying pan anymore?
He doesn't have anything in his hand.
He had a kitchen utensil in his back pocket we couldn't see in the video. What happened to that kitchen utensil in his back pocket?
It was laying on the back of his head.
Okay, so it fell out of his pocket?
Yeah.
In a moment, we'll see this in a second. Is your son still alive at this point?
Yes.
Could he have survived this encounter, the 50,000 volts in a single shot?
Well, at that point, he was still acting. There was a stomach shot, so it's very likely he would have survived.
Did the officer stop there?
No.
Push play, please. Now he's lying on the ground, unarmed, wallowing in pain. They have the frying pan. They have the knife. Did this video skip ahead?
Yeah.
Okay, stop it. That's fine. This video skipped ahead. It doesn't show them that Darius, I'm sorry, Mr. Tarver, what does Darius do next once he's struck by the officer?
Once he was struck, he was laying on the ground, rolling back and forth. He was just crying out, "My Heavenly Father is my shield. My Heavenly Father is my shield." And at this point, when he's rolling back and forth, all the officers are pointing guns, yelling, everything you're trained not to do. No one tries to help him. No one tries to arrest him. No one tries to get him help. But at the same time, one of the officers that was near him, standing at the foot of his head, my son is feebly trying to get up. He's holding his stomach, and they're telling him, "Don't move." But you got 4 officers, a 160-pound kid, maybe 6 feet. They could have easily knocked him over and restrained him. And he's barely able to get up, but the other officer ran behind the staircases while they were allowing him to get up. And the pan, which was a non-lethal, they allowed him to get up, and the pan was still laying there, so he picks up the pan, and when he turns around and he starts walking, never raised his hand, never did anything. The same officer shot him 2 more times, point blank in the chest.
We can't see all that clearly, though.
That's all right. This has nothing to do with what, I'm sorry, the image that I just displayed has nothing to do with what Mr. Tarver said. What Mr. Tarver just said a moment ago is that after his son got off the ground, stood up, instead of the officers taking him into custody or subduing him or following any of the policies and procedures, they watched him limp towards one of the officers, and they shot him 2 more times in the chest, killing him. Mr. Tarver, we thank you for your time. If your job requires you to make orphans, if your job requires you to kill the innocent, to imprison those in mental health crisis, I have a suggestion for you besides shooting the alligator. It's light yourself on fire. Again, not advocating violence against police officers. But this gentleman here is a Buddhist monk named Tet One Dup. 1963, he went to a crowded intersection in Saigon for a particular demonstration. He was facing an oppressive governmental regime. The Soviets were invading Vietnam from the north, the Americans from the south. The Americans were backing a dictator, a Western-style dictator named Ngo Dinh Diem. Ngo Dinh Diem was rapidly divesting the Buddhists of their property. They were taking Buddhist land, taking Buddhist churches, having forced conversions, raping Buddhist women, and creating a hostile environment for Buddhists to live in Vietnam. Now, Buddhists are pretty passive people. They don't have a lot of resources. They're not known for gathering wealth. They fast, they pray, and that's pretty much the weapons that they've been given to fight with. And they were fasting and praying against Ngo Dinh Diem and the Western-backed government, while they were rapidly destroying the community around them, where they had declared war on the Buddhists. So Ngo Dinh Diem, out of options, knowing that doing nothing was not an option, he went to the most crowded section in Saigon that he could find. You see that can of gas next to him. He poured it all over himself. And and then he lit himself on fire. And he sat there and he burned to death. He didn't flinch a muscle. I have other pictures that shows the progression. But he sat there until he turned into a hash of ash. And when they went through the ash, believe it or not, they found a crystallized heart inside of it. They took that heart and hid it into a mosque. It caused a whole nother war. Neither here nor there. No Diem gave us the example of what we need to do when we're out of options. We live in a community that is the deadliest police culture in the modern world. We've addressed this already. Where someone like Darius Tarver, a member of the National Organization for Black Law Enforcement, someone who was literally born to change the system, can be murdered. I forgot to ask Mr. Tarver, what were the consequences to the officers? The answer was, they were promoted. Wow. The civil case is still under review in the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit is one of the most conservative courts in the country. And they have that weapon of qualified immunity to kick his case out. And we're still battling past the first initial hurdle of qualified immunity. If these are the circumstances you find yourself in, that we all find ourselves in, we find ourselves in a similar position to Tet One Dub. I'm telling you, the only logical thing to do is to light yourself on fire. But I don't mean go to a crowded section in Cleveland and pour gas on yourself. Go wherever the hell you were put and light yourself on fire there. Go to your classroom and light yourself on fire. Go into your workspace and light yourself on fire. Come into a community center. When I was a teacher, I was taught to teach as if my hair were on fire. Understanding that my students would have a difficult time contacting me, connecting with me, unless I expressed the urgency and the need for education. Listen, what we're facing here in the United States is urgent. And we need people to respond with this kind of urgency. And that's my story. I'm looking forward to the panel. I'm looking forward to extending this conversation with you all. God bless.
Mr. Lee Mayer and Esquire another round of applause. I'm so sorry for your loss. At this time, I would like to introduce our panelists. Our moderator for this morning is Habiba Grimes. Our panelists, Latoya Logan from Project Lift, Eric King from Mental and Emotional Wellness Centers of Ohio, and Billy Gilliam from Parker Consulting.
Can I say one more thing? As a result of Tet One Dub's demonstration, within 30 days, the Western-backed government of No Diem had fallen. He had been removed from his power, and him and his brother were executed. Tet One Dub's single act, although apparently helpless, changed South Vietnam forever. You all, my point is, you all are a lot more powerful than you think.
That's Honey Mary, thank you for those passionate words, those fiery words, those words that inspire us to action. I want to thank you all for being here today in this place of healing, in this place of reconciliation to one another, to ourselves. And I want to thank you for the courage to confront the mental health impacts, the trauma impacts of these tragedies. My condolences to Brother Tarver and to all the folks in this room who are impacted, whose families have been impacted by police violence, and I sit here as an impacted person, having lost my own brother in a mental health crisis to a police confrontation in Columbus, Ohio. I want to open us up with thinking about what it means to heal in the absence of justice. Our brother Tarver is here today and moving through the country as an activist working in a hostile environment like Texas as an activist alongside Attorney Merritt, and needs to be well in order to stay in the struggle, needs to find healing from an unspeakable tragedy to stay in the struggle. And so my first question, and I'll start with you, Attorney Merritt, is how do we find healing in the absence of justice? We heard the officers who murdered Darius were promoted. They got advancement. They have higher salaries and opportunities to power now.
Thank you. Finding ways to continue to heal when you're being denied justice is, I don't know, and luckily you gave me this question weeks in advance. I don't know that I can answer it. I can say that people heal differently. And that Mr. Tarver, for example, is, as you mentioned, crisscrossed the country with me and spoken at the White House, spoken with other victims all around the country, participated in trials. And for his family and for a lot of the families that I represent, the healing part takes place when the community acknowledges their loss or their trauma and then reacts with Teflon-like urgency, right? Healing can take place during pursuits for justice when the community responds properly. And so that's one major aspect of it. The other aspect of healing through trauma or healing on the road to justice is, I believe, continuing the fight along people who love you, but making sure that you give yourself space to heal. So many families, like I mentioned Kevin and his commitment to the cause, that can burn some other family members out. And so they need to see this community standing for a problem, not just his.
Thank you. I'll turn to our very own Latoya Logan to respond to this as a mental health practitioner.
I think it's a difficult question because justice sometimes can feel like an implant, and healing is consistently evolving and changing. And so they may not be able to happen in congruence, complete harmony, but I think we can have levels to our healing as we pursue justice. I'm a firm believer that none of us would be martyrs or saviors or superheroes. We are humans having a human experience, which means there are times we have to check out. We have to allow ourselves or give ourselves permission to rest and recover and prioritize our wellness. We are here for more than the suffering in pursuit of justice. We are here for joy, to live, to connect, to love. You have to sacrifice you in order to achieve the justice. So I would encourage people to look at levels. What are some things that can happen in your life right now that is justice-minded, that supports your healing? And that might be community, that might be collective engagement around civics, and that might simply be praying with someone or meditating with someone on the things that are overwhelming you.
Thank you. Billy and Eric, I think it's important for us to also hear from you on this topic. Will you share any thoughts you have?
Sure. I wrote down a couple of things while everyone was speaking, and I tend to speak from wounds versus scars, right? So what ends up happening when there was this profusely bleeding wound when these circumstances happen to us? And for me, like Latoya said, it's this continuum, it's a process we go through. But for me, the goal is, can we get this to a scar? Because that traumatic experience lives in the body, right? And if we don't have some sense of healing, despite the lack of justice, we will profusely bleed in every area we go in, right? We live in a space where we're hypervigilant, where we're amped up, where our bodies is under continual stress, despite the fact we're not encountering a stress in a particular moment, because we're still nurturing wounds And we hadn't got to the part where
you on with that metaphor of scars and healing. Healing is a process, just like everyone just said. The other part about that is the scar that appears after you healed, after you've had the ornament, after you've had the process, after you've had and gone through everything that you need to remind your body and your spirit. That scar is there to represent a remembrance. It's there to help you remember what that felt like. And when we remember something, when we have that remembrance, we are learning, we are processing, we're going to take what we learned and just, change who we are. And so as we're going through this process of dealing with, in this time of harming, we have to get to the point of healing. We have to get to the point of allowing whatever injury or wound to scar over so that we can go to that next process and go teach and heal someone else and say, look at my scar. Look what I can heal from, which is what we do as providers. Look what I can heal from, and so if I can heal from it, you can heal from it, and I'm going to help you heal from that.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. I see your hand. I want y'all to know I got a few questions for our experts here, and then I'm going to invite the audience to ask some questions as well. I want to turn to the Black community and how we coexist with the 50-pound alligator in the room. That's always here. That's been here really 400 years, and it's probably 500 pounds. And I think back to your son's dream and the terror, right, that he must have been experiencing in the midst of that dream. Black folks have learned how to mask our terror, how to hold on to our terror. We've been told to not even speak of it. And yet it is with us, and yet it manifests. And I want to be sure we leave here today understanding the manifestations of trauma, of coexisting with a 500-pound alligator for 400 years, across so many generations. What is that looking like? How are you experiencing it in the people that you serve? Eric, let's start with you.
That's interesting. In the people that I serve, I primarily work with Black men, although my organization is a general organization. My work is primarily with Black men. So what I teach in I guess coexisting with that 500-pound alligator is reinstilling that males or the clients that I work with, that dignity, that ability to hold their head up although you're getting beat down, that ability to remind them that they are significant parts of their family, their community, as well as the world. So in dealing and coexisting with the alligator is, for me, and who I work with and how I work, is telling that individual you matter, you are a person. If it's Black men, because we see a lot of harm, and if my client is a Black male, just reminding them that you have dignity, you are important. And when Black males' dignities are taken away, that's when we see suicide. Not simply reminding them that they're strong in mind, body, and spirit, but also reminding them that they are an essential part of this world and they have dignity.
I just want to lift up, what you're describing is the despair and hopelessness and how you are counteracting that in the people you serve, and the suicidation, the thinking about suicide, attempts at suicide that plague us in the Black community. Don't let anyone tell you that the Black community does not have challenges with suicide. We have increasing rates. So I just want to bring that into the space, and thank you for lifting up that despair that people experience. Billy?
Possibility of coexisting, to me, makes me think of alignment agreements. And I don't see alignment agreements. What I do see is as individuals in our community living like refugees in their own homes, right? And so it's not even just about, just to piggyback on what you're saying a little bit, we have to not allow that 50-pound alligator to have the capacity to define who we are, right? Because on top of just the idea of defining who we are as African Americans, is also the idea that we say, I know it's suicide in terms of people killing themselves, but we're also talking about there is a death that's happening slowly every day. Right? And so when we're having that happen every day to our spirit, mind, and soul, that we are trudging through life, and that's not the meaning. That we're supposed to be struggling and surviving through this thing, right? We should be thriving despite our circumstances, not surviving because of them.
I think it's complicated because when we talk about how trauma manifests, well, first we have to say that most of us don't know that we're experiencing trauma. So some of the manifestations are anger, are fear, and self-rejection. I see self-rejection as the paramount response to trauma. We don't try to do a thing. We don't take a risk on ourselves. We don't believe that change is possible. We begin to cope with this trauma through years, whether that's through slavery, sharecropping, Jim Crow, and we have had these traditions that have transitioned into coping skills, that have transitioned into our culture. So we have scared our children into watch how you're looking, watch how you're talking, and then we want to criticize them and throw them in the garbage because, well, your presentation is why all these things are happening. If you could just improve that, things would get better. It is the youth that are the issues. We self-reject because we will say things like, there is a good type of Black person to be and a good presentation to have. And if you're not consistent with that, then you are wrong. We internalize and we hate ourselves. And that's how we can look in our communities and be enemy to one another. Because we are trying to understand this huge thing that's happening that has no rhyme or reason. It just exists. And as much as we are fighting, so this is why we take on tropes like Black magic, right, and Black excellence. So we believe we can finance our way out of racism. We can outwork racism and oppression. And so then we make ourselves responsible. So if you're experiencing these things, it's simply because you haven't done enough. You haven't educated yourself enough. You haven't invested enough. And then we turn all our education onto our communities. And we are recognized in those communities to say, change. You're lazy. Why are you doing better? Trauma manifests in anger, in shame, in fear, and self-rejection. Sometimes we are irritated with our own community and we don't understand why. We're in pain. And we don't know how to articulate that and express that. This violence that we're seeing is a manifestation of trauma. I only live once. I am pleasure-seeking. I am joy-seeking. I am taking a risk on my life because it is meaningless to me because you told me that. I've been indoctrinated into that. And so I am just living out what you have taught me. So I think it's bigger than what we're going to do. It's really tapping into how we're going to feel about each other. And then deeper, how we feel about ourselves in these Black lives, trying to navigate this system.
Amen. Yes. Yeah. One common pitfall that our panel, who I think has really covered all the bases here, we haven't really got into is desperation. The response to the constant trauma, the 500-pound alligator, is desperation. And that's the most common response that I see when engaged in sort of the start of these national fights. Everyone comes and says, why are you wasting your time? You know, Wanda Cooper Jones, Ahmaud Arbery, what are you doing? They're not going to arrest those men. Your son shouldn't have been in that house. And that was our community's response for a long time, is that kind of desperation, you know. Kevin Torrey, you're in the Fifth Circuit, you know. Those are all Trump-appointed judges, and you have no shot. And we accept these things, these setbacks, because our desperation says we can't win as a 50 or 500-pound alligator. And so I think that has proven to be, for me, as an organizer and as an attorney, the biggest pitfall to having to live with this beast. You know, we've watched this same alligator eat children for generations. And so, you know, when you show up and say, hey, well, actually the law doesn't allow for that, now I'm not going to stand for it. Our community often says, well, who are we who oppose it? This is how it's always been.
Yeah, powerful comments from each of you. As I reflect again on the analogy of your son's dream and trauma and what it's doing, there's the vicarious trauma, right? There's the witnessing and the being present for. We have a conundrum in this country where we need evidence of Black folks suffering before we believe that Black folks are suffering. And so we have cell phone evidence we have body cam evidence of our loved ones being murdered and maimed and tortured. What's happening to us as we consume these images? What does this commodification of broken Black bodies mean to our current social media capitalistic system? How do we secure the evidence that we need and the justice that's possible using that evidence without deepening the traumatic pain that we're talking about here today?
Well, I have to confess that I built my platform around Black trauma. I started telling people what I see every day. And as a result, people, well, this is the goal, where you become affronted or upset by it, take it personally, then you get active, right? And so the goal in introducing this trauma was to motivate people to do something about it, right? The problem is the vicarious trauma that is a consequence. And I have friends who love me who say, hey, Lee, I don't follow you, right? Oh, my mama, she's like, I don't want to see what you're posting about it. It destroys my day. I said, imagine how Kevin Carter feels, right? Imagine how it destroys their day as well, but they can't avoid it. And we didn't see any real progress in Ahmaud Arbery's case. I remember Al Sharpton had us on, Don Lemon had us on. We heard about it, but people weren't that concerned until the video came out. And once we put that video up, people saw what actually happened to Ahmaud. That's when the world was like, oh, stop. We cannot allow this. And so when I take on a new case, and the video that we have released from, that I just showed you all, they didn't want to release that. They said they want to protect the family and the community from that kind of trauma, right? And of course, the way to protect the family and the community from that kind of trauma is to change the militarized police force that's causing it, not to hide the evidence, right? And so it's you're right, it's a conundrum. It's what do they call it's a gift and a curse, because we need the evidence and we need you all to see the evidence. And most of you all heard about my platform because me and Sean King have been showing the evidence, but it's changed my life. It's caused depression in my life. It's caused mental health, anxiety, and all kinds of things that, as our experts will tell you, I didn't know where it was. I wasn't even aware it was occurring. I was just doing my job, and the trauma set with me and impacted my household. So I think we need to be conscious of it. We need to have strategies to deal with it. But the answer can't be avoidance. The answer can't be to put me on mute like a lot of you all do on social media. We have to stay engaged.
Thank you. I want to end with Eric because of some important work you are doing. So, Latoya, share your list.
Oh goodness, I can't watch it. I just have to be honest. I work with Black males 14 and older who are in the community, who are in juvenile incarceration and adult incarceration. Every day my conversations are around trauma. And so there is a limit at which my body can absorb those stories and that information, and certainly the images. And I am trained to be able to assess okay, it's time to take a step back. We can't help from just hearing about another loss and internalizing that in a way that can be, one, it will be me next time. Two, it could be someone I love next time. Or three, I am so overwhelmed that it is much easier for me to be apathetic in this moment. Because if one more thing comes in, I don't know what I will do. Yesterday I trained all day long on trauma expressions in Black males. And at the end of that training, I finally looked at my phone and it said, we have aliens. And I put the phone down and said, this is enough. I have had enough for today. Now I have to worry about aliens too. And so I think what we tend to do then is we settle in that trauma, and we need to see it, because it's like, it can't be true that another thing like this has happened. So I think if we're looking for confirmation because we want it to be wrong. And then the other piece of that is, we do live in social media. I have a problem with Black death and Black abuse being shared on social media in the way that it is shared. I believe we need to know about things, but we become desensitized to that pain and suffering the longer we choose to engage in that and engage in it and then do nothing about it. So I saw this terrible thing, but I didn't go to therapy. I saw this terrible thing, but I didn't process it with anyone. I saw this terrible thing and I did not go and maybe report something. What we're doing is we're taking it in and we're sitting in silence with it. We're so triggered that we can harm another person or ourselves because we're so overwhelmed. My advice is this: know about a thing. You don't have to see it to believe it. You already know. We have professionals who that is their job that they chose to step into to process that for us. All we have to do is support the fight. Get involved so that we're not just observers, warriors of Black pain and Black death.
So, I completely agree with what Toya is saying. There is something about, I don't watch them either. And I do think it's a very weird space to be in. You know, I get the value that this thing wasn't a thing until the video came out, right? But I also get understanding what it does to the body when we're constantly watching something, or we don't just watch it once. I mean, the news circuit is 24/7, and we see it over and over, and it's a terrible thing to watch. Now, it's a necessary evil for the attempt to have justice, right? What that looks like. But then there's a part of what is happening to our bodies when we see it. I think there's I don't even think we're even aware that we're being traumatized. We're not even awareness of it. And because this Black violence becomes standardized and normalized, we have an expectation that this is what we're going to see. You know, I really, unless my algorithm is off, I really only see this when it's our community, these videos over and over and over again, right? And it's simply, at least from my perspective, then we have to have a resume on why somebody should have been able to make it, right? He was a captain of the football team, or he was this. To me, none of that matters. Is this a justifiable death? Nothing was justifiable about it. You know, and so we're constantly, when we spoke earlier, that you're not doing enough. Because it's never ever going to be enough, because we can't coexist with the 50-pound alligator that's telling us we're not enough, right? And through 400 years of coaching and reinforcing of who you're not, the therapeutic process helps individuals unpack and unbecome what a culture has told you who you are.
So I've been trying to figure out how to craft this and be succinct. So I'm going to be as succinct as possible, because I can, if I had a magic wand, there's something that I do in therapy. If we have a magic wand, what would you do? You know, what would you change? If I had a magic wand, what I would change or what I would add is for every Black individual who watches a video, there is a therapist there with them to help support them. Yeah. So I don't have a magic wand. Say like, you need to process what you see with somebody. My answer is more. That's my answer. Now, because I can't get that, and I can't get what I want. I love my kids. They're sitting over there, and I tell them all the time, you're not going to always get what you want. So what can we do? So what I teach individuals is not to avoid, but lessen. Understand your body responses, and understand what happens. When we continue to watch this over and over and over again, we're being traumatized, vicariously traumatized, and we have something, I'm not going to go into it, we have a workshop today. But when you're watching this over and over and over and over again, what do you believe that is happening? Yesterday, someone brought up the concept of Black on Black violence. When we're constantly watching these things, this anger is becoming bottled up. We can't go be violent out in somebody else's community. So we're violent within our community because we have to exercise this thing. We have to get it out. And so to bring it back, I can go off. To bring it back, just be aware of your body and have more therapists available that can help you process what you see. and what you experience, because it's in there and it's going to come out in your parenting, in your romantic relationships, at work, it's going to within your community. You have to process this because it's not going anywhere. And you have to deal with it, or else it's going to eat your body, and that's a whole other conversation.
I want to just say a word of gratitude for those who bear witness. Attorney Mary, you bear witness. That is your inheritance in this time, and that bearing witness brings us the degree of justice that we can account for, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the healers, because in a country that has sustained itself on broken Black bodies for 400 years, put them up on postcards and as prizes, and now we face police violence. We need our healers to help us to recover and reclaim our humanity. Before we go to the audience, I want to ask you 2 questions. One is, how do you take care of yourself, given what you experience in your day-to-day work and service to our community? And what does it look like for you to sustain your fire in this work in the ways that Attorney Merritt asks us to show up? So I'll let whoever is feeling on fire to answer this question. Those 2 questions, go for it.
I can say that not coming from a mental health perspective, addressing this trauma from an attorney perspective, I left myself vulnerable to all kinds of attacks. The criticism of the public, and then of course just the sheer trauma of the work that I was doing, and it's not healthy. Black men are not allowed to grieve openly, and suicide and other things are real, that are really impacting our community. As you mentioned, it's increasing as we deal with this trauma in a public way. So taking this seriously was something I had to do in order to be here for my family. I mean, I was hospitalized just from anxiety alone. And so first, I just want to emphasize that this conversation is just a really important conversation. For the last 10 years, people have been asking me, hey, how do you take care of yourself? And I'm like, I'm here to talk about Ahmaud Arbery, And everywhere I go, people ask me, well, how do you take care of yourself? And I was afraid to answer the question because the truth was, I was not, right? That's how I used to say, and I have to say this out loud because for years I said this to groups, to rooms like this. Oh, you take care of yourself by working through the trauma. What I mean by that is by being able to do the work is a form of relief for me, and it is. I've been gifted to do this work. This is my calling, and it is therapeutic to be able to do the work successfully. But that's not it. You can't work through it. You have to take a break. You have to unplug. I just got back from San Diego, California, Legoland, Universal Studios with those 5 kids. They show up in my conversations now because we kick it a lot, right? We bought a pool. We spend time in the pool, but really making time out for the family. Not apologizing for me, this is something, this may not be forever, not apologizing for being successful in my work. For a lot of people, that's a problem, particularly for people who fight for our community. What is he doing with wealth? That doesn't look like a struggle to us. And I'm sorry. But I work really hard for my family's resources. We get to enjoy it as well.
So first question. I think the first thing that I accept, I said it earlier, I remind myself I am not a savior, I am not a martyr, I am not a superhero. I don't have to be in everything. I don't have to have the answer for everything. And I don't need to have solutions. I can listen. So I have allowed myself space to know that I have a lane. And in that lane, I push and I fight. And when I find that I'm exhausted, then I rest. It's difficult for me because we were raised, my grandmother's 95, and her statement to me since I can remember is, there's always something to do. At 95 years old, she wakes up after 10 o'clock. She says, oh, I just wasted my day. We are just happy you woke. We just happy we see you. You don't have to do anything but that. If that's what you do, thank you. And watching that, and other women in my life who overwork themselves, other men who overwork themselves, I don't want a stroke, I don't want a heart attack. I don't want to age disgracefully when my body is broken and I can't do things that bring me joy. So my wellness is about recognizing I have a limit. My mantra is I don't have to be perfect, I just have to be present. So when I am present, I have done enough. And when I have to be absent, that is my wellness. Now, how do I stay ignited? Because as you probably can tell, I'm always on fire. I teach and I train. I know I cannot do it all, and it can't end with me. So I invest back into my community. I am a mentor. I am a field instructor. I teach in university. I train. I want to give everybody I have so they can take it and do better than me. So I stay ignited when I see people come into this field and say, I really thought social work was just about caring. It isn't. It is a profession. It is an expertise. It is a commitment. It is an investment. It is advocacy. And to do this work well means we have to collaborate together in order to reach outcomes. So when I see that insight in somebody else after speaking to me, that is enough.
So I'm trying to collectively figure out how I'm going to answer this question, right? And it has to be such an intentional process to take care of yourself, because when you're in the work, you could be drowning and not knowing, right? Because you're always taking care of somebody, but you can forget to take care of yourself. So there's like 3 words I would use. I would use grace, right? I had to learn, and it is still a process of learning, of having grace for myself, because I don't have to always get it right? Having grace for myself, because I don't have to be productive, because productivity is killing us, right? That whole strong black woman thing. I'm so glad we started talking about that and stopped that conversation. But we're killing ourselves with the need to constantly be productive, sometimes because we're avoiding what we need to address, right? So the concept of giving myself grace, to be able to retreat, because that's what I do. I pull back and I get quiet and I remove myself. And people are like, oh, I haven't heard from you, or I have this, because I have to do that. I have to pull away, and there are certain things, because I'm constantly processing, I'm constantly doing that. I have to not watch things or not certain things on social media, so I'm not processing, because it's okay to rest, and we're not resting well as a community, we're exhausted. We live in this consistent, exhausted space. If you ask people how they do it, it's either I'm fine or I'm tired. And we live in that space. So there's grace, being able to retreat is the other one. And honestly, at the very foundation is my work with God. That is my foundation. That's not something I dip in. That is something I am in. Like, I don't dip in that. I have to be intentional about that, because I believe in living from the inside out, right? So I'm living from the inside out. That means my spiritual self is informing my emotional self, which is informing my psychological self, because we navigate the environment. And if I don't live from the inside out, that means the environment gets to dictate how I live for the day, right? So that is a very intentional thing for me. So you spoke to fire, right? And for that word is purpose. It's believing that this is a purpose for me. This is a calling, and I'm being in my calling, and not apologizing for what we said is having any form of abundance for it. Because I do believe there's this really odd synonymous thing with black. You can still advocate and be there for people and still be doing okay, And so we have to work on making sure, but just kind of circle back, is being intentional about self-care. Not only self-care, taking bubble baths and getting my nails done. Like that's maintenance. That's food.
That's supposed to.
I gotta have it. But it's really about, if I don't feed my spiritual self, I can feel the difference. I can feel it. I said, oh wow, I'm absent. I've been absent from the body. So it's a constant thing of doing that and not penciling that in my day and making something else more important, but doing that on a regular basis so I can live from the inside out and not the outside in.
So I do everything that everybody up here just said. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy how I do it. I enjoy where I do it. I do it on my own. I work, I have the luxury. My wife has blessed me to work for myself, or ourselves, I should say. So I do all of that. Also, every 6 months I take off, and then I take a month off and I go and recharge myself. And I also, and we're not going to demonize social media, but we're going to add something to it. Also, frolic. I don't know if anybody has ever seen this video. It's called Black Men Frolic. I frolic. When I go out, and every 6 months, I go out, I have fun, I laugh, and if anybody knows me, I'm always smiling and laughing, and when I'm not, that's when things go wrong, at least for me and for other people. But I frolic, I have fun. I mean, some of the people that are in this room I know already, and they know I have fun. I love to eat. I love to enjoy some good bourbon, so I like to enjoy my life while everything else. I frolic, I enjoy myself, I laugh, I joke, I meet people. I be a silly black man, which is what I was not supposed to do as growing up. I emote, I do all that. So that's what I do in order to, recharge. Everything that everybody else said, plus, my daily devotionals. I do all that, plus I frolic, I enjoy my family, I enjoy being goofy and silly when I need to be. And that fire, I don't, let's see, where did I get this fire? I think I got it from my single parent mom. I think I got it from, watching, documentaries. I got it from, working under you when I was at PEF and, experiencing. So my fire comes just because I'm black and just because I'm a black male. I think that's where my fire comes from. It's there. And having the opportunity to be a black male and be human in all ways is the thing that I cherish and allows me to continue my fire. Because anytime that somebody tries to put me out, my wife will tell you, I have a phrase that I say and she knows when, okay, Eric is at the top. I say, hey, my man. And that's when it's time to, okay, let's take Eric back because he may pop off. But just in all reality, I just like to have fun.
I want to thank our panelists and apologize. I am told that there is not time for audience member questions. I apologize about that. I will tell you in the sessions. Okay, so there will be access to these brilliant minds in the coming sessions. I want to thank y'all for sharing your gifts with us today. I thank you for your service to our community. I'm so glad that you are engaged in rest, pleasure, and play in service to your sustained well-being. We are blessed that you are in service to our community.
Can't hear you. Come over here.
Let's give our panelists another hand as they are exiting the stage for doing a fantastic job of helping us to understand trauma. Right now, we're going to take a short break as we rearrange the rooms and go on to breakout sessions. This is where all the magic is going to happen. This is why you as community members are here. We're going to have 4 different breakout sessions facilitated by the panelists that you just saw, plus Mr. Jewel Woods. In classroom A, on the lower level, we're going to have Ms. Latoya Logan. She will be facilitating a conversation entitled Releasing Trauma Bonds, Creating Healing. So if you enjoy Ms. Logan on stage and you want to learn more about releasing trauma bonds and creating healing, please join her. This will be This will be ballroom A to my left. The center will be ballroom B, and to my far left will be ballroom C. So in ballroom A, we'll have Miss Billy Gilliam, who will be facilitating Managing the Rain. So if you want to join Ms. Billy Gilliam, you'll join her in Ballroom A, Managing the Rain. Ballroom B will be Mr. Jewel Woods. Mr. Jewel Woods will be facilitating the conversation on institutional betrayal trauma, police violence, and Black suicide. Institutional betrayal trauma, police violence, and Black suicide. That'll be here in Ballroom B. And then Mr. Eric King will be in Ballroom C on the very far left, and he will be facilitating the conversation. We don't have to watch everything, how what we watch affects us. So please come back as we reconfigure the room and drop the walls to get Ballroom A, B, and C going. We will need everyone to exit as we reconfigure the room.
Managing a rain. I like that. I feel like I need this.
I'm confused though.
What's going on?
Because she didn't say nothing about the room being divided into three.
Yeah.
So how am I going to be in three pieces at once? Like, that's not what she, that she did not make that clear. And now I'm,
do we stay in here? Or?
I'm only going, I'm not, she said breakout sessions. She didn't say that it was different. I didn't.
Please be back.
No, I get you. Because I didn't know that either. I thought it was about to, everybody was going to be in here.
11 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
I just know, I guess the bars come down, you see? Yeah. I'm like a blind.
Yeah, I was like, the curtains down.
He slipped and fell, which is why I'm yeah, me too. Yeah, your father will be a bit crazy.
Going to speak to us and allow us to realize that what he said years ago still stands today.
Hey Jay, how you doing? You can't even hear me.
When he got the message right before they killed him.
I'm like, where's my camera? I'm looking here. Yeah. That's why I'm trying to just, I'm trying to, where we going? Let me know what's good. They do. Somebody.
How'd I do? I did all right. Let me get to this room and figure out what room I'm in, man. This is not me. I can't do this minute, bro.
Oh, yeah. You know, my bag is over here. Okay, come on. Okay.
I'm speaking to see this afternoon. Oh no, the night out. Yes, ma'am. That's okay. And I walked up and down. I got to that's not until next week. Okay. That's all right. There ain't no big deal. You're the next one. Well, that's yeah. How are you? Yes, ma'am. Well, we have right now.
I'm sorry. I mean, same here. Yeah, it was just right over there. Yes, I wanted to. But I don't know if you can.
I know. Someone get off.
I'm here all week. Yes. Yes. Because I already been talking about this stuff. Thank you going on.
Testing.
And then she became a scholar after that. And so,
Yeah, and then they eventually are just gonna break off in their respective rooms and I'll talk to whoever sitting there, managing the ring. I ain't even read what the room say. Yeah, it's the first one. You ain't lying. Hey, did you like Star Wars? Yeah, Vega was that.
first time I had
Yeah, you can smell this.
It is right.
We all good. Just never all the people. Yes, ma'am.
All right, darling.
We got history. Yeah, I'm not taking it to
That's the thing, she did not say. Everything was gonna break the room. I thought everybody was gonna be here.
So I would just say,
None are here, so I'm not sure.
but she did not say nothing about video. Yeah, where SD cards at, bro? You can't go with the SD cards. That's
All right, darling. Good to see you. You too. What? I know you was giving us. I know I was like magnetism. You better come by.
I just came to the first one. I happened to see y'all later.
Right?
Happy to see y'all later.
They transitioning over to the
Hi, good afternoon. Testing, testing. Is this on? Sorta, kinda. Can everybody hear me?
Over here.
Kinda, sorta, right?
Wherever they are, we can hear.
Yeah, I thought they know coming up over here.
Take this in the middle. You find somewhere to get a good angle of the dude speaking. And you can put it on the bottom of the chair.
Gotcha.
And then
this thing gotta be connected to the phone?
it's connected.
For sure. Alright. Which one am I doing? Oh, I'm at this bottom one. Alright.
You want to just figure it out.
I got it.
Stop and listen wherever you are.
Hey everybody. Hi. Hey. If you guys don't mind, if you could come a little bit closer. Yes, come just a little bit closer. Can someone AB tell me how to do advanced slides? They told us that our time's a little bit shorter because the panel ran over, but I will get through as much as I can. And also, just to let you know, what we really should have said at the large group process is that the Adams Board is funding one session per month for 12 months with a therapist of your choice, right? Whether it's myself, whether it's Eric King, whether it's Latoya Logan.
The last thing I want to do is pathologize Black life. In other words, almost everything today is considered a mental health thing. Anxiety, depression, and trauma, and all the things that some of our elders in this room might be feeling. We've been dealing with this for decades, for a long time. And for a lot of older folks, when they look at younger folks,
I want to say that now. Letter, degree right there. But I'll tell you a little about a treatment, just a little bit of how
have social media, we saw Black folks being crucified, right? You know the story of Emmett Till, right? So there's a lot of older Black folks who are looking at what's happening in Black life today and saying, well, hold up, how do you explain it? Because all this trauma y'all talking about was in life for us, and we kept the movement to use your language. So there's one of the first things that I want to say again as a mental health professional, I am not interested in apologizing Black life. I say that one of the best antidepressants is a good job. Amen. One of the best anti-anxieties, right, is social justice. And so everything can't be, anxiety and depression and trauma. And I'm saying that as a person who's deeply committed to Black life and Black death. So that's one of the first things I want to say, because what we have an opportunity to do is to kind of figure that out. right? Figure out exactly what we mean when we're using these labels like trauma. Because at this particular point, everything can be trauma, right? Somebody can be trauma, right? You got to drink. Turn my books with traumatic.
We are
Right? So,
placed in terms of all the images that we see about who we are, right? And then our own individual traumas. It's constantly.
now I'm almost so sacred. So again, I'm gonna run some of this stuff. I guess I should grab my little clicker here. And I haven't introduced myself, right? So my name is Drew Woodson. I'm the father and clinical director of Male Behavioral Health.
Somebody just got the whole chair.
We don't, we're so used to traumatic experience that we have monetized black trauma. It's become a thing. We monetize black trauma and not black
President, because you know that's the thing that
so it can be complex, like I described, or it could be a one-time thing, right? You have a traumatic event, you have a one-time thing happen, a car accident, or death, or that's a significant issue. Is the solitude, wisdom, or money. So, okay, so talk a little bit about this story that comes next. The different types of trauma versus trauma. I want to get to that. Ever looking for the source of the leak. So what does that mean? What do you think that means? We build dams to control the flow of pain without ever looking for the source of the leak. Yes, ma'am. So revelation is knowledge that's felt. It's something that we know that's within. It's something if somebody says, well, how do you lose weight? Oh, you have a calorie deficit, you work out.
One. Understand or when those
The thing that's really interesting about healing, as you heal, you start is not word, is hearing. Whatever really just go through a process. I have this thing I developed called
She was 11, 10 or 11, but she was walking around the house singing the lyrics to Darling Nikki. And so, being outraged that she wasn't aware that she bought this material for her child, her and her group of her friends, they got together and said, we need to come up with a way to create a rating system so that consumers know what they're purchasing. Fast forward 2 years later, Straight Outta Compton, which I don't know, some people in here may have seen the movie, which featured NWA, which was Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, who was actually the person who wrote the song. So, for 1980, that was going on in 1985, 86, but by the time it went through Congress and all this, and they came up with a system, Straight Outta Compton was the first LP to receive that rating because of the lyrics that was on that LP. So that's a little bit of the origins of the song. But really, fast forwarding to what that meant to the culture is really, it gave
artists the balls to say what now they am. I'm one of the people who say sometimes they might take it a little too far, but NWA and Fuck the Police was really the origins that gave artists the balls to stand up, and regardless of how uncomfortable it made an audience or listeners, it forced them or gave them the leeway to become more in touch with their feelings and really raw emotions and put it on wax. And that has become the rally cry across the world, not just the United States, not just for Black people, because what they thought it would be done away with, it has actually been embraced. So what was once a part or thought to be a Black issue has now, that same song has been remade across rock and roll, across country music, across every genre. Well, I can't say every genre because I don't know if they've done anything in classical, but they have done it where it's big and bone. So, you know, anything is possible. But at the end of the day, it has become the rally for the movement as it relates to police brutality. And so Bone is the lineage of NWA. They also recreated the song. It has been etched into a culture of hip hop and beyond. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but that's kind of the origins of where the song came from. Now, from my personal perspective, what I'm gonna say is, for me personally, it's Fuck the Police because it's been for Black people.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I want to come to Chanel now, and this is kind of a two-part question. I want to know how you view that Fuck the Police became such a rally cry for the BLM movement, and then also, if you like, name another rap song that embodied resistance to the heavy-handed government and heavy-handed police forces.
I say all because that second part of the question, the rap song took place during an action that happened here when we first convened in 2015 with organizers around the world. I'll go back to the first question when we talk about where did Fuck the Police come from for us. And a lot of folks begin this iteration with the movement in 2012 around Trayvon Martin. For many organizers and mutual aid movers, which I am, when we see one of our folks or a city or a group of our people pull out a rallying cry, and those young people were doing that on the back of this white Hispanic male stalking this Black teenager on his way home. And in that case, people are just like, you know, that cognitive dissonance come up. If we're gonna talk about mental health, we need to talk about the ways in which we do ignore when these situations come up and how our fear can inhibit what happens as we move through society. And so people were like, well, that's not the police, it's just this white guy, but he thought he was. He was perpetrating through the neighborhood as a police with a weapon and interrogating this child, assaulting this child, and ultimately killing him. And we see all of our folks in Florida, and they come together, and we still don't get the response from the people who are supposed to, this is another part of cognitive dissonance, give us this safety and give us this protection, which is not the role of the police. It has never been the role of the police. And I think a large part of cognitive dissonance is other folks trying to get people to understand that the police are still these people that's supposed to X, Y, Z around safety, and they just are not. People are telling this story about how like the police have always been here, from overseers, you know, we have KRS-One telling us who they are and how they just oversee what it is that they see, the over-policiness in our neighborhoods, the over law enforcement that they do, acting as the courts in the streets, ready to make someone guilty and even an executioner at will. And so before Trayvon in 2008 was Jenna 6, and it was 6 boys who got to a fight around the white kid. They beat the white kid up, not really even that bad. You know, you can't fight, you can't fight. And I think that's just another thing when we talk about white people not can't fight. And they got scared, and so they locked these boys up, and they was getting ready to lock them away for a very long time. And then that's when we start seeing the mass exodus of us moving to a city that we hadn't really seen since the 90s. I know a lot of people try to erase the 80s and the 90s, but we're talking about Fuck the Police in the 80s, and we have what happens in LA in the 90s, and that sparks another revolutionary moment. And so from Gen 6, we have like mounds of Black organizers and activists and everybody go down to Louisiana, and we have who's in resistance to us, the police. This ain't even got nothing to do with you. And here y'all are again, policing how we show up in resistance to whatever that is. And so Fuck the Police has always traversed that movement. On to 2014, and we do have a situation where the police are on a rampage. We are all enthralled, and the boiling point has tipped over as we watch people mourn at Mike Brown's memorial, and the police have dogs on people who are crying in the street over their friend who is like yards away from his mother's house trying to go home. And then we find out what all has been happening to this small community in St. Louis and how they are just opposed to like gentrification and all these other pieces. And people really start naming like how the police has involved themselves in preventing us from having social interactions with the rest of society, income, housing, childcare, etc. All these things rise up out of that moment. We then convene in 2015. So this is cute, this is a two-part question. We then convene in 2015 because we done sparked. Everybody has sparked, and that's what that means in that moment when movement moves. It's not just a protest. We're not just marching in the streets. We're disrupting every inch of this society so people can absolutely see how the system is working. If we're going to throw wrenches, let's throw wrenches. Let's move those bolts out of the way and just dismantle it, right? That's also what Fuck the Police means, because they are on the outside of that machine. And they are patrolling how we even see the machine, how that machine works, who we can ask for. We get together, and it's the last day of this convening. What university was he at? Cleveland State. Yeah, Cleveland State. And the entire time we have maintained our safety and security. This is another point I want to bring up. We can't keep relying on the police if we don't even know what safety and security is. And that's the reason why we default into the police. So we're getting ready to leave, and we've had a ball. They've already played Kendrick Lamar. We're going to be all right. And we just like, oh yeah, it's cute, you know, because it fits the moment, and we're having a joyous time inside this space that we have built on this campus. Now, the disruptions that have happened are just with us because we're going to have conflicts. If I don't know how to self-advocate for myself, then I may not know how to self-advocate for you, and we're going to have that conflict. And that happened. And we cease those where we're leaving. And a dynamic group, Black Youth Project 100, see a young child getting hemmed up by the transit police. We don't have those in Louis, so I don't know what y'all call it. RTA. And they got this baby inside of this little station things in the middle of the street. Shelter, okay. And there's police here, there's police there, there's police there, and he can't move. His agency has been stopped. His bodily autonomy has been threatened. And he doesn't know what to do. I mean, he's not wilding out, and I know people want to be like, be calm, but like wilding out, you know, I'm just saying I'm wild out. That's just who I am. But he was scared. You could tell he was scared. And I was glad that those young people were there because then they went to his defense. And as we all were like, you need to call his mother, we're pulling in our legal advisors who are there, you know, people who go to actions and only talk to the police. Other folks start building this safety net around this baby with their bodies. That goes on for about like an hour and a half. I mean, we get pepper sprayed and everything, and we go through all of this just to protect one child. And at the end of that, we were able to get a hold of the mother. Everybody comes out. For some reason, like one of the videos, a butterfly literally does fly across this massive amount of Black folks who've come together all over the nation, and we just go ahead and start singing, "We gonna be all right together," because we are. I tell a lot of times when I'm training folks that we did not get here on accident, and we have to understand how we did. There wasn't a passive way that we were able to establish ourselves to sit here, to build these organizations that we're in, to build these economies that we want to see all of our folks in, to address the harms and hurts that come from us. There is a lineage of Black resistance that has always been here and has always said, fuck the police, no matter how vulgar, and who cares, right? Because they are going to always be here anytime that we try to organize any bit of freedom for ourselves, any type of safety for ourselves, even down to care. We just went through a ridiculous pandemic that killed us.
Yes. Yes.
That killed us. We were at the front lines of that. We still had to show up to the grocery store. We still had to show up to the corner store. We still had to show up in different positions in those hospitals, all the way down from the janitor to the nurses to the orderlies, all these different positions that Black people sit in, and we were still taken up out here without care. We had to build that for ourselves. And sometimes that builds up a trauma in us that other folks don't see. And in our communities, we were still over-policed. Bodies still dropped. On March 13th, at the beginning of those closures around the nation, a situation happened in Louisville, Kentucky, where a young woman lost her life in her home by a no-knock warrant, by people who weren't wearing masks. These people didn't come to our neighborhoods talking about, do you have hand sanitizer? Are you making it to the grocery store okay? Are you able to pay your rent? Your police are not going to do that. They went in there and killed that woman. They put their boot on that man's neck. And lied. Oh, they always lie. That's what the police gonna do. And so while there may be good ones, we always know that the entire system of policing is always, just as Osi said, fuck us. So it's gonna be fuck you too. And that's the energy we give them. But we can also build up that energy. I don't know if we're going there. I'll get that way.
What I wanted to next go into was, music has long been a form of expression and activism, and also advocacy. It's not always ethical, and one of the examples I'm going to give right now is what you might be seeing in the media right now with Jason Aldean, the country music singer. And, I think that the timing of this song and so forth is not coincidental, that it's coming before like the huge launch of a Trump campaign. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be a rally cry for them. I don't believe that it's a coincidence that he's pandering to folks who now are trying to really have their voice be heard. And I'm talking about that group of conservative racists that exist within this country and just are begging to be heard. So now my question to both of them is, with that being understood, and I believe that we should have counters, where do you think we're going with lyrical activism since it seems like true lyrical activism in the mainstream seems dead? Do you think we can have another or more reinvigorated fuck the police type movement, fuck the police type of songs and so forth coming out of hip hop? Do you think we're going to have that again? Do you think we can?
I think we absolutely will until we get to a place and space of healing. So at the end of the day, for me personally, it's not about fuck the police, it's about fuck the bad police. Because at the end of the day, when you go to the store and you buy a bag of potatoes, if you look and you turn it over and you see a rotten potato in your new bag, are you gonna buy that bag or you gonna buy the next bag that don't have it? So in my estimation, one bad apple do spoil the bunch, because if you can live in a society, or I would say if you can be in a job, and if I'm on a job with you and I know your behaviors, and we know our coworkers, so when you are complicit to what this person is doing and you know they're doing it, and a lot of times those who are complacent in it look just like us. Matter of fact, they signed up for it. And so at the end of the day, where there'll continue to be music that says fuck the police, or it's still a rally cry for the movement, yeah, until we get to a place where healing can take place and that we undo all of these
systems. And for me, it's no way to, I've already been vocal about that. In my estimation, there's no way to correct a system that's working exactly how it was designed to work. We're trying to break it and interrupt it right now, but there is, as long as people continue to have free will, and we know at the end of the day, God put in us everything that we need to be successful in life. That's why we have responses, what we've been hearing all day about visceral response. So we know about fight or flight. God put in us everything that we need to be successful in life. It's when that free will, that's the thing that keeps the world going at the rate and in the type of situations that we're in, is because people have the ability to have free will. So at the end of the day, I don't care how much training you give somebody at work about changing your attitude. You should love black people. You should want to come. Yeah, they're going to continue to do that as long as they leave work and go back to the environments that they came from, because we all understand that racism is a learned behavior. So you can give them all the training you want to give them at work. You can do all of that, but the moment they take that uniform off and they go back to the environments in which they live and they congregate with the people that they congregate with, there's nothing you can do to change somebody's idealism about their beliefs or what the things that they believe in. So if they believe that black people are inferior and we deserve to be treated like that, there's nothing you can do. So my answer to all of that, will be more music? Yes, it will. And what's the answer to all of this? Throw away the whole damn system. Right. So why in this day and age can we get scholars together in a room to create a new constitution and to address all of these broken systems that we know when they were put in place by people who did not want to see the success for black people. And so it's being perpetuated. It sounds like two syllables. Perpetuated to this day. And so will it continue? Yeah, you better believe it. And it's only going to get worse until it gets better, but sometimes it has to get worse before it gets better.
Thank you. So I want to take that question to you as well, Chanel, but I wanted to know, starting off though, are there any artists perhaps that are currently doing some things now within this moment that you think are serving as like an inspiration, bringing out maybe the next rally cry that's going to inspire us? Because I have to say this, I'm a little bit long in the tooth. And so because I'm a little bit older than most, I can think of the artists that inspired me, like a KRS-One, with songs like You Must Learn, and, I actually got information from those. And those things, I think, and I would say KRS-One and Public Enemy were the ones who really inspired me the most to take the course that I'm taking now. And I think that other folks shouldn't be denied that. So do you see any other artists that are serving in that capacity?
Yeah, you'll hear me weave back and forth between history, because I'm a historical geographer, and I look at the ways in which we move. We don't move without solution. We always are moving with solution. And sometimes that's traumatic. Pop culture is the overall trauma that we're actually moving, because we have to continue to keep creating culture over again every time that it gets disrupted. This is the main thing that we see all the time. What can I wear that's different? What can I hear that's different? What am I getting ready to draw? All that art comes from these moments, these movement moments. And we call it a movement because people have to move first for a movement to even get started.
Come on.
And so throughout our history, we have been creating and keep on moving. I remember in our planning conversation, we were talking about this, and I had to raise up. I was like, actually, people have been saying fuck the police before the 80s. Most of the music that came out of the South, even in those plantation fields, were also not only just hymns, we always want to highlight the good stuff, but some of that bad stuff makes us too. And we can't just look at it as just like something that's just really bad. We have to absolutely look at it as the ingredients that builds the culture that we have. A lot of rhythm and blues and a lot of that jazz talked about those things. We're talking about hanging people from trees. We're talking about people who have disappeared. We're talking about entire societies wiped off the map. It has always been fuck the police. And so, yes, even in this moment, our young people are creating beautiful music, but also very much beautiful trends that are highlighting not only that we know that they are healing in progress. It's why I love these little new kids. They don't care. They ain't getting ready to be scared about actually saying the things that a lot of people tiptoe about. You sit in, it is generational, so I am glad that you bring that up. A lot of folks get into meetings, you know, like us. I'm like, what's that mean? You got something on your hand itching? What does that mean? To rub your skin to say black or to say brown? I mean, that's who we are, right? These kids are going to name it when they see it. This person is saying something to me, it made me feel a certain type of way. And we have to hear them and listen to them. There are a few young, and there's too many to name. They are creating songs that also help legislation in this moment. There are young girls, especially back at home, they've created a song about their hair, their crown, to help this Crown Act get passed. And for some people, that doesn't seem like it's important, but how many of us have lost jobs because we wanted to wear braids or we wanted to put on a different wig? And we're still having this conversation as if it's a joke, but it is not a joke. White women can wear whatever type of hairstyle and hair color that they want, but until we get into a job space, then we have to change the way that we look so that we can appease some, and we have to say this word, white supremacists. And that's exactly who was running the show. White supremacists, not just Trumpers, not just Bidens, because let's be real. I mean, y'all thought he was gonna say something. Y'all see it now. McConnell's. I live in McConnell country. That affects me every day, and it's not just what y'all see out there. That fool runs stuff in Kentucky so ill, it's ridiculous. We pray every day for his downfall. And I'm just gonna name it. If I wanna eat, I got to have him gone. These children are naming what it is and how to fix it. We have to, and part of that healing, move out the way. We have got to, in our own healing, be sure that we hear somebody and sit with, is that advocacy for me? Because it may not be. Where is the advocacy that I want to build out? Have I been doing that? I need to sit with that. 2020 came and I led a protest, it led a spark in our city. I was tired, I also got shot up, so I sat down. I sat down because I was hurt. But people were calling and asking, what can they do? I wanted to be like, you should have showed up at training 3 months ago. You know what I'm saying? You should have showed up at the training 2 years ago. But I couldn't say that in that moment. People had agency. What does your agency call you to do in this moment? That's a serious question to ask somebody. In our line of work, we have to sit with what comes up in our body. And so we have to ask those questions. Those children are already making that music. Those children are already building this culture. Attend their spaces. Attend those conversations that they're having. And they are having deep conversations. Back in March, a police officer caught 4 boys in an abandoned garage back at home. And this fool, of course, this training and stuff we keep talking about, had his hand in the trigger as he's approaching the building. Now, if you know how to handle guns, you know that that's totally incorrect because your mind will also take over for that trigger point. And he shot 2 kids. And I know a lot of people wanted our city to be an uproar and to go, but so many of us kept saying, well, what were they doing in the garage smoking? Well, what were they doing this and what were they doing that? Well, why didn't you ask them? Why aren't we asking them? Why aren't we listening to what they're producing? Because that's what happened in that moment back in the 80s. And they were able to use their platform to go ahead and name that and be able to push that. And they're doing that right now, and we just have to be willing to go ahead and speak that into existence.
Okay. Anyway, well, so we're coming up at the end. So I want to thank both OC and Chanel for your valued input. And I want to definitely, well, OC is homegrown, but I definitely want to invite Chanel back. We look forward to doing a lot more. Us at Black Lives Matter in Cleveland, we've had a long-standing relationship with Black Lives Matter in Louisville, and we look to be partnering with them and just kind of let folks know when you support the work, try to get with us because we've got to do a lot better, a lot more of supporting each other. Sometimes traveling, doing a little bit of traveling because they're within our region. So anyway, I want to thank you both for coming and doing this with us, and thank everybody for listening.
I'm gonna use this mic
All right, one more time. Please look up Stop Cop City. It's called Stop Cop City. Please together.
And give our guests another round of applause. Thank you so much. We just spoke about something that's very important. Our youth are out here doing it, and they're doing it right. Thank you so much for staying. You are in for a fabulous treat from our youth. We have the Sparrows Fortune, who will be performing. They are spoken word artists, and they are fantastic. I would like for the Sparrows Fortune to take the stage. They are going to give us an amazing performance.
Our future.
Hey y'all. Hey. Yeah, how y'all doing today? This has been phenomenal, hasn't it? Yeah. It's been pretty cool for real. So my name is Khalil Cage. We created the Sparrows Fortune. This is Morgan. Y'all want to introduce yourself? Yeah.
My name is Morgan Page.
I'm Quiet Kid.
I'm Mixed Rose.
Yeah, it's on.
Hey y'all.
So basically what we do at the Sparrows Fortune, we create interactive art moments where we are performing in front of crowds, and basically our goal is to inspire, educate, and encourage our community through arts, entertainment, and creative writing workshops. So when we're not on the stage talking about the work we do, we're in different rooms with students, youth, and also adults, working through the emotional advances that we must do to teach people about their own emotions, especially when it relates to Black and brown disparities and challenges, but also familial challenges and disparities as well. So, without further ado, y'all ready? Yeah! I don't think y'all ready for real. Yeah! Alright, cool. So, what I need y'all to do, so if y'all like something, let me hear y'all snap. Can y'all snap? Alright, cool. If y'all really like it, can I hear y'all clap real quick? If you really like it, say, ooh, that's hot. Ooh, that's hot. Alright, cool. Alright, we're going to get started with y'all. Give me just a second. I used to be scared of lions and tigers and bears, but then I became one. A roaring, rebellious kind of creature, craving simple comfort in a nation hell-bent on hunting me. Black boys and girls, we are painted to be villains and beasts. But no one comes to our cages to see how truly harmless we be. You know they say, the first one to howl is rarely ever the first one to step on someone else's feet.
I heard a story once about how I outmaneuver all the predators looking to hunt me. My story was a classic tale, outlast or be killed. See, I grew up in hellish environments. As a gazelle, if you will, I was prey to all. It was as if everyone wanted a piece of me, but there was no peace in me. I realized my story has no end, because legends are in my bloodline, and I've endured enough to know that to outlast is to stay ahead long enough for cheetahs to run out of gas.
This is no storybook happily ever after. We don't get to wake up from nightmares of our feet going numb from running. I question the idea of fairy tales. I question any ideas that tell stories of glory for a couple of sales. It's sad. Y'all, it's sad to see how fast souls sail when our monetary value docks and our pride of self set sail. But isn't it imperative to sleep in a society aiming to achieve the American dream? What an allegory of the cave this fictitious, malicious, malignant conundrum of a country has come to be. Don't know the difference between self-realization and reality TV. Right. Ever since the birth of a nation, they've been taking our tongues, telling our stories. No need to fight the status quo, don't you know? They already created a character for me, y'all, don't you know? Poor black kids, supposed to go from ground to glory. We all supposed to be something like Mowgli, something like Animal, until proven human. We grow in environments where we are trained to be hard, and then become halos when we bite back. We get broken down and then told not to fight back, at least until we prove ourselves as soft as Charmin, at least until we prove we won't cause Goldilocks no harm, at least until we are diminished to just prairie dogs, just barking. All we know is to be animal, no matter hood or adjacent, no matter if we're the ones chasing or being chased, so don't chastise us for choosing to dream wide awake. We've come to conclude that it's finally time to face the nightmares on the outside of this cave.
Caves being our own mind or the caves we've been sanctioned to. Our hoods being the only place we can be ourselves or the selves they have shaped us to be. We eat of the fast foods and delicacies of our ancestors who turned grime into holiday staples disguised as soul food when our insides are deteriorating. High blood pressure and diabetes, and we don't trust no doctor. Why should we? They still believe we feel less pain than whites do, yet we feel it more and more frequently. We just learn to endure and hide our feelings because why would we give them the satisfaction of watching us suffer? Give them the fulfillment of being our plight. We learned of the fiction and decaying history books that if there's one thing they're going to do, they're going to lie. We learned to turn off the news because we knew we would see another black man lie in a pool of his own blood and again watch another mother cry, tell of all the tales where her son was a good son, where her son was a good man, where her son was a good husband. And again they lie, make fiction of his story to justify why he in fact deserved to die. Then they got the nerve to make cowards of men be the enders of lives, and that's probably why some of us was confused on whether or not Jesus was white. Because why else would white men get the right to have all that power? Then I reflect on how Jesus was slain and how the world hated him too, and how that process was his call to die and then live more abundantly. And then I reflect on all the times I had to die to myself to live, and I see how one thing we ain't never failed at is our ability to survive. And then I realize that we one of them ones, one of those creatures, one of those animals that never goes extinct.
I think they should keep quiet. They quiver with false narratives, so we decided to write our own. It seems as though it's natural to hate us, to debate us, to negate us, anything but celebrate us. But the most beautiful thing of it all is only we can make us. Every seed after its kind, which means there can only be replicas of me after mine. No such thing as cloning these spines we pass still rides through generations. Look at our history. We've ruled for all time. This is just a bump in the road. A small moment where our manes have been cut short, but as sure as the sun rises, the world will hear our roars forevermore.
We had dreams once. We had ideas of living in a land where love was bound by laughter. We also had community long before we were colonized, long before we were bound by lynching. We were taken from home and then given housing shacks. They shook our land for gold and then gilded their own god of greed. From branded lines to red lines to food lines, it was all organized. All the black body has come to know is death.
I want smoke with death. People keep on running into death on their way to destiny, putting scars into the skin that the reaper deems worthy. I wonder how the soul feels after it's forced from the body. Bullets are often lustfully craving black bodies. See, because bullets be heroines for death, eating away at the flesh to feed its higher power. God, am I meant to blame the bullets or the barrel they poured from? God, how closely are you related to death? God, I'm sick of seeing death walking in masses to keep sowing shame, sucking the souls of my friends. I want the fucking smoke. Is my body not black enough? Is my flesh not fresh enough? Is my soul not soulful enough for you to sink your teeth into death? Black bodies deserve better than being magnets for gun shells. And it's hard not to want smoke when death been robbing niggas of their lives, like black skin tastes best when it's lifeless. Like black bodies are better with the soul snatched out. Say, God, I'm afraid if I keep living for all my dead friends, I might not have enough life left to live for myself. And I don't mean to sound selfish, but death is the biggest trend that black bodies follow. It's immortalized itself into our skin. My uncle was ambushed by gun shells and strangled by bullets. They hated his skin, so they ate at his skin. My grandmother had an aura that was so angelic that God made her an angel. No matter how many times death walks around me, I can't become numb to this kind of pain. How much longer must I keep enduring the same kind of grief? My brothers being taken upward with angels holding them, bleeding out with holes in them, and I can't even grieve out loud without being told I wasn't close enough to him to be as sad as I am about his death. But what good is graduation if the biggest accolade is living to see it? I mean, what in life could we ever earn if our lives always end up ashed into urns? And God, I want to ask you why you're always bringing my friends and family home, but I can't figure out how to ask you nicely. So that's all I got to say to you. But I want smoke with death.
Cards dealt by death are damned by the ills we face on a daily basis. They debase us, degrade us, and then detonate us. The black body is deemed to be too explosive, too volatile, too violent, as if our legacies aren't expensive, as if our heritage hasn't come at the expense of actual lives. We gamble with institutions, educational systems, food deserts, and discrimination, and still we play to win. How are we supposed to proceed in a world programmed for us to fail?
My black skin is a raffle ticket into a game called America, and the competition is to see who can live the longest. The level of difficulty is based on the shades of black, like an eyeshadow palette kit for smoky eyes, because our visions are fires of revolutionary and our opponents want all this smoke. You get bonus points if your black best friend, brother, or father dies, and you stay alive while a piece of you bleeds out like the medium rare steak your opponent eats over dinner conversation talking about he shouldn't have resisted. Extra bonus points if their death goes viral or makes it to the news outlets. Now a piece of your death is being streamed like a reality show, and everybody got an opinion on the storyline. You automatically skip to the next level if corporations commercialize your fight to stop fighting. The first 18 levels are hard, but you learn a couple cheat codes. One of them is if you are a woman, then your life might be spared only if your opponent rapes you and snatches the life from within you outside of your body to create another duplicate of your opponent nourished from your breast milk. They've done this in past versions of the game, so you gotta use its history as a survival guide. If you are panting but still breathing and your heart's beating despite anything that pours out of you from the torturing, then it counts. Congratulations, you are still in the game, and they will hurt you 8 more times, 8 more times, 8 more times. I am pressing buttons out of terror on a controller I have no control of, trying to control my destiny, trying to control the destiny of my son who hasn't been born yet, trying to control statistical numbers 8 times. Another cheat code is to surrender to the powers of your opponent in the hopes that they don't convince you to kill yourself. These the type of opponents to put a pool on the table but drown you with a scratch, because a scratch to them is harmless, but for you, that's how you lose the game. No wonder why the 8 ball in pool is black, because black people are 8 times more likely to get shot 8 times because 1 bullet wasn't enough, because black people are 8 times more likely to get played than paid, because it's just a game to them. Unless we forgot to clock in these 400 years worth of hours. Some of my teammates lose the game before they understand I'm not playing. It's not a way out. Come on. There's only one way out. And it's a pain without a climax, but one thing's for sure. As soon as me and my teammates figure out this glitch, we gonna win. 8 times. Game over.
She-Shuck and Jive holding the mic, trying to figure out how little the distance is between now and the end of this press conference. Figure shit. The city council office kind of needed this. A few more funds for a few more fractions of the masses. Shit. And we know why she here. Just trying not to get fined. Just trying to cover they asses some uhs in the middle of sentences while they still handing us sentences. No child left behind. That boy 29 and still stuttering through sentences. The issue is y'all, we past pissed. We was pushed past history. It's still a mystery how we still had enough bread to pack gifts under the Christmas tree. Taught us to bake them loaves before we served ourselves slices. Our work is priceless, and yet they price us. Put taxes on our temple, and we still pay tithes. My grandma Riss been working since she was 9. She 85 and still trying to redeem her rights. They read him his rights, but would rather shoot him dead. What a fraud of an education department. We don't know if they feeding us or if they the feds. School to prison pipeline looking mighty fine. They fax over test scores, making sure we stay in line, and here she is. Quoting lines from MLK like we in 1959, and here we are. Holding picket signs like our president is black and we back in 2009. You think, after so many laws and legislation and discussions and mediations and meditations and spreading love and sending vibrations, things would change us. I guess time itself is just filler space. So obviously, there's a difference in our trustability when it comes to Congress, when it comes to presidency, when it comes to legislature, when it comes to white lives versus black lives versus blue lives. And so the question is it really you versus me? Is it us versus them? Is it black versus white? Is it black versus blue? Is it poor versus wealthy? Or is it more about the tools we use? They say we need reform, but it seems as though everyone else would rather preform than change reform.
Nobody ever cares about me. How the sweat of a murderer's hands grip my neck. Nobody ever cares about me. Everybody wants to pull a trigger nowadays from their triggers being pulled on, but nobody knows the amount of blood I taste, the amount of blood I see from what is labeled by my wrongdoings. Everybody want to ban me instead of press charges against those who release such agony. I mean, I'd happily surrender myself to save a life instead of taking it if I could, but my molestation from these murderers' hands go overlooked. I become them myself. Like the victims targeted by my bullets, I feel so used to be a part of such dirty work. Then after they finish, I feel dirtier. No one man should have all that power, triggering populations, powerless, because my bullets be the periods to end one's life sentence, regardless of how periods grant women power to birth a new life sentence. Wild weapons, weak wrongdoings, we can never attend the funerals we've caused. Maybe this is all my fault. Maybe I was showing too much of my frame and that made them want to touch me more. They wanted to feel my click, 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 sexualizing me like a clit, fingertips on my nerve endings so they can end someone else's nerve endings. After these murderers say hello to my little friend when faced with a target, new scars of fear surface on their faces. Now these victims got scar faces and their families scarred for life. Sometimes I just want to put my own trigger on some trigonometry and shoot myself once held at the right angle. Maybe the damages of these bodies will decrease if I dangle myself. Does suicide become less selfish if it's for the greater good? No. My mama, who is a pistol, would be pissed off at me for thinking such a thing, but my daddy, who's a rifle, would tell me to take what's rightfully mine, even if it's my own inanimate life. But what if my duty as a gun is to save lives, not take them? What if I'm actually worth more than the wicked who leaves me winded and their targets winded? Sometimes I see organs flying in the wind. Did I stutter or did you pull my trigger? You know, the one in front of the gun don't always shake in fear. Some of us are scared of our own power. That's why I hold my own breath so these victims can still still release theirs, but it's hard holding your own breath when you were manufactured without one. I know I'm not the only gun who thinks this. Why you think some of us jam, but jamming don't always save the innocent who just be jamming to the music in their headphones. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. Now your headphones ring gun tones. On behalf of every gun I know, just know we didn't ask to sign our names on dead bodies that frame us for splashing them in red caskets.
Your imagination is not big enough for me. Black boy, did you forget how to dream? My dreams are massive. I could dream for you. Ooh, I dream for you. Rewind. Say rewind. Your imagination is not big enough for me. Black boy, did you forget how to dream? My dreams are massive. I could dream for you. Ooh, I dream for you. As big as Texas, I built a home with this song for you. Can you hear it? Big porch with rocking chairs to match, porch swing swaying with the summer breeze. We watch as our kids run, flip, chase after each other. Can you see it? Me still loving you with this dream. Would you believe me if I said that I believe in these things? Every time my eyes catch yours, as if it's our last days, can you feel it? This feeling that dreams don't exist without you, boy, I dream for you. My dreams for you are bigger than us because our kids are proof. Legacy with your last name on it, you see what dreams will do. A love amongst all the strength it took to get to this space, to be in this place with you. Imagine us, now breathing the same air each day. If our eyes locking wasn't okay, if close wasn't routine for us, could you imagine that? I don't want to grasp any of the concept of what we have, so I won't ask. My dreams are proof that I'm in alignment with my destiny because my dreams came true when I dreamed for you.
I'm ultra black. Before God said, let there be white, let there be light. So I guess that means I'm black plus ultra plus God. The mightiest of them all, blacker than a knockout punch that have you blacked out by all might and one for all. I'm ultra black. Light skin with the blackest bloodline that extends past the oceans with the blackest blood that sunk so I could rise. Blacker than what it's like before you were alive. Blacker than closed eyes. Blacker than before your dreams become anything. Blacker than the night sky that holds the stars in place and wishes are granted on. I'm ultra black and black girl magic. So melanated money could never match up to my value. That's why black people make less money, because we're already worth more. I'm so black, I turn poverty into power, tragedies into triumphs, bodies into bulletproof vessels, because eventually these bullets will become intimidated by how strong this skin is, no matter how much you try to take it. Like how colonizers tried to break niggas with a hard ER, when niggas means king in Ethiopian terminology. Black is so undefeated. Nigger isn't a slur, it's a typo, because the root meaning means king. My oppressors uplifted me on accident because I'm ultra black. Dope. Come on. Dope. So dope, I make others expel dopamine, but only if you get a dose of me, a dose of this blackness. Fuck corona, my blackness is the vaccine. I'm ultra black. Black like my soul stains black holes. Black like pupils dilate at black goals. Black love, black don't get old. It's hard for black to get old when it doesn't have a beginning or an end, because it was always here. Even science says black is so valuable. I'm ultra black. If black wasn't beautiful, why are beauty marks black? I'm so black. I'm so black, other colors work together just so they could try to look like me. I'm so black, other races appropriate my culture just so they could try to be like me. I'm ultra black. I'm black plus ultra plus God. I'm ultra black.
We celebrate ourselves, and sadly, these celebrations are seen as disruptions. When we tell stories of detriment, we are called divisive. But it's up to us to build or destroy. It's up to us to decide how we navigate in this world. but we rarely talk about, we speak of reconciliation, but we rarely talk about the work it takes to extend grace, to hear the other side out. Words travel by mouth. Words travel by mouth, and life and death are in the power of the tongue. Our goal on this earth, specifically as artists, is to give power to the young. We are posing rhetorical questions, performing hypotheses in every possible way, because there ain't no way on God's green earth that one of his creations is anything short of phenomenal.
So we shall take offerings of the earth, having all that we will at our disposal. Why not reciprocate the energy of giving our gifts back to the world? Gracing this ground with our beauty, let's use these flowers and faces to glorify God. Use our mouths to sing in his splendor. Should we let rocks our Christ in the praising of his name? If he dressed the lilies in beauty that outshines the riches of kings, should we doubt the fashion in which he clothed and created us? If he watched over every sparrow, should he question his detail to the ones he made in his image? We are all here for a purpose, and however our Creator deemed us fit to coexist is a gift to marvel and be in the presence of like creative phenomena. And doggone it, I feel blessed that I'm even a part of the conversation.
So a movement it shall be, a new decree, if you will, turning up the heat of our hearts just one more degree. Let's agree to look at the sun as it rises and smile back. Graduate to a new level, from drowning in desperation to sailing the seas of elevation. Joy shall be all-encompassing, the compass we use to navigate from never to always. We shall laugh out loud at both progress and pain. After all, don't they both come from the same? After all, don't we know we are all one in the same? The products of Sonder. How beautiful is it to know I depend on you just as much as myself? And ain't that a wonder within itself, how we are weaved into the fabric of our friends?
How our fingers interlock perfectly when we hold hands. Are we much better together than apart? Don't we thrive further at the sight of our peers' success like the sun rising in the morning? It encourages us to take on a new day. And the moon at night reminding us that we deserve a good night's rest. And when the leaves fall, doesn't it give you the courage to let whatever that is not serving you go? And oh, when the flowers bloom, doesn't it inspire you to be the best you that you can be, to grow and live to your fullest extent, to blossom without the need to mock the next plant growing next to you?
I believe we have finally learned what a gift it truly is, to cohabitate with like creatures of our Creator's hands.
A type of mutualism that would never exist without his touch. And that, for no other reason, is all we need to give God, our Creator, the glory.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Let's give them a stand.
I believe that the creator of this Girls 14, your leader, Khalil Cage, do you want to kind of explain some of your pieces and maybe take some questions from the audience? And then we'll have some final closing remarks from our very own commissioners, from the Cleveland Police Commissioner. Thank you so much for joining us and staying to the end, because this was worth it.
Thank you very much. But yeah, we open to questions, anything like that. Do any of y'all want to like explain y'all piece? Say it one more time. We've been doing this since we started planning back in January 2022. So literally about a year and a half. Say that one more time.
Do you do other events?
Yes, we do. So if y'all go to our website, thesparrowsfortune.com, if y'all follow us on Instagram at thesparrowsfortune, you'll see all the events that we do. We partner with different organizations to do events. We just did a 90s R&B night with Tastemakers back in April. And we host our own events. Morgan and I were able to release an album off a show that we built called Bear in the Flesh. And that kind of speaks to relationships when two people come together and the hardships that you might go through, but when you working at it with a person, y'all can get through it. And we all did the introduction. We have Hear Me Out. It's a plethora of things we've been able to do with poetry and sharing.
How did you guys get started, and how can more youth get involved?
So basically, it was just a thought, an idea. I know that in Cleveland, collaboration amongst artists hasn't been common, at least before I got here. So I'm not from Cleveland, I'm from Chicago, but I heard about the artist scene in Cleveland, and once I got here, I saw all the amazing, these people is crazy, ain't they? Like, they raw for real, right? So I saw the amazing things that Cleveland was doing, and I wanted to reach out to these people and create a collective where artists could work together to be able to do stuff like this. And again, work with young people who are younger than us who needed another creative outlet. So we do, like I said, we do creative writing workshops. So we are actually in the process of scheduling some workshops throughout the fall. So if you want some programming, hit us up. We'll come through. But yeah, we do community creative writing workshops as well. So everybody is welcome, adults, young people, and basically we use these to get everybody involved in the creative process. I promise you, it's not nothing crazy. We ask y'all questions, we read a poem or a creative work, and then we ask a few more questions, create, again, that conversation to get thoughts flowing, and then we write our own work as well. So,
Have you ever heard of the Poetic Poem Group, which is from Cleveland? They practice over at the Nigerian Superior. It's called the Poetic Group.
I'm gonna research the Poetic Poem Group.
Any of you from that group from Cleveland? You guys are from Cleveland, then have you heard of, there is a group in Cleveland that is very prominent. They travel all over the United States. I think distinguished gentlemen and distinguished spoken word. Spoken words, right. Yeah, so there is young groups, and I think the youngest might be that's in the group might be 8. So these young men are very prominent, they're very good at the spoken word. So we do have organizations that are very vested here in Cleveland in the spoken word. So this is not a new phenomenon, even though you guys are fantastic, but there are groups of young people that are very vested in the spoken word. So if you research them, you'll find that they're very prominent. And their schedule is always booked, so it's very hard to get them to come and speak at that point.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the distinguished gentleman. I know Honeybell Bay. She is one of the organizers there. So yeah, they're definitely a great, fantastic group of poets as well.
Well, you did a great job.
I won, like I said, it's an incredible capacity to paint very stark pictures for us to see in your words. But it also supports, especially for me as a clinician, it supports being very much in touch with your body, very much in touch about how things impact you to be able to do what you do. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Poetry or spoken word artistry and writing in general has always been, for me, just a coping mechanism to being able to explain or get myself to understand outside of me how I feel. Yeah. I think that it's a good practice for those to, even if you're not doing poetry, but more so journaling, just to get it outside of you and not really always have to vent to other people, especially if they're not licensed or